In this tutorial, we will use the pen tool, the pencil tool, and the ShapeBuilder tool. And we're also going to be using the Eyedropper tool extensively to apply appearance elements from the head to the body that we're going to be drawing. So to start with, let's go ahead and select all the elements of the head and the crown and group them to make our life easier down the road. And we'll just call the whole group head. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to make sure on my layers menu that my background is locked, and it is. And I do have layer 1 selected. So if I click in my layers panel, I can just click to the right of layer 1 here at the very right corner, and that will select everything in the layer. Alternatively, I could hit Command or Control A, and that will select everything in the layer as well. And then I just need to hit Command or Control G to group this. And so I've got my layers panel open. If you don't have it open, open it up. And let's just rename this group to head. Something you may notice, if you double click on the word, you can edit the word there. If you double click on the icon, it'll open up an options window that also allows you to edit the name. It can also allow you to turn visibility on and off and lock or unlock that object. So, you know, we might as well lock it just in case. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this as well. I'm going to hit OK. All right. Again, I can turn the lock on and off here too. There's several ways to skin this cat. Let's go ahead and make sure we have layer 1 selected again over here, and we can close our layers panel for the time being. And then let's zoom out a couple of steps. I'm actually going to hold down Command or Control and tap the minus key. And then I'm going to use the hand tool to actually, which is the letter H on the keyboard, to grab the monkey and the artboard and just pull it up so it's at the top of the window, so I have more space to draw the body down here. And we're not going to expand the artboard right now. We're just going to draw the monkey and leave the body hanging off the artboard. Okay, so to start with, we're going to use the pen tool, and we're just going to draw a very simple torso. Right? We're going to start here, have a shape that kind of comes out around here and comes back to about even on the other side of his face. And so I'm going to grab my pen tool. I clicked up here. You can hit the letter P as well. I'm just going to click once to drop a point. And then I'm going to come down to the very center of this monkey here. And I'm going to click drag to pull this out, right? Because I'm actually going to make him and these handles are going way out here to make him a nice bulbous monkey. And I'm going to come up over here and I'm going to click once. Basically at the same height as that other anchor point, and maybe I'll go into here. Right now you'll notice that clearly I have a gradient selected right now, and that's not going to be very useful. I may turn the fill off here in just a second, but before I do, I'm going to go ahead and close this path. So now I've got this body. I'm going to use my selection tool, or the letter V on the keyboard, to select this object. I'm going to click on it once so that I get these options to show up in the top bar, right? If I select it after using the pen tool, but don't actually click on it, I still have the pen tool options up there, which isn't what we want. And I'm just going to say I want no fill on this. All right, we're not going to fill anything until we get a little bit further along. And I'm not going to adjust this. I'm not going to move it under the head yet. I'm going to leave it right where it is. Now, something else we can do is we could just leave this very simple body. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple points with the pen tool, because what I'd like is for his pectoral muscles, I'd like him to be a little bit curvy, have a little shape. So he's going to have kind of lumpy pecs and then, you know, a little bulbous belly. And it's not going to be like a hard bump coming out. It's just going to be some soft curves. So he has a little shape. And so what I need to do is I need to add a point. If I hit the plus sign on the keyboard, I can get the add anchor point tool. So I'm going to add a point here and probably one right between the two of those. And maybe I'll do it on the other side as well. I'm going to more or less align these together, and I'm not doing this in any precise way, because if he's a little bit off, that's probably better. All right, and then I'm going to use my direct selection tool. Once I have added these 3 points on either side, I'm going to use my direct selection tool. I'm going to grab this anchor point. I'm going to pull it in just a little bit. I'm going to do the same for this anchor point, pull it in just a little bit. I can pull these out just a touch maybe, right? And this is, right, this line's just way too straight. I really want a little bit more curve in there. And maybe this needs to come in a little bit and come up a little bit. And this one's a little hard. Maybe I can bend that like that. There we go. Right, and so this is something you can make it whatever, you can give them whatever shape you want. It's not a huge issue. You could have left it with with what I defaulted with. But if you have something like this, so he has like a little bit of a body shape. So we've drawn the torso. Let's use the selection tool and make sure we have nothing selected currently. So now we're going to use the pencil tool. And the pencil tool is here. It's right next to the paintbrush tool. The paintbrush tool and the pencil tool are very similar and have a lot of the same functionalities. We're going to discuss the brush tool in detail in a later tutorial. The pencil tool is only ever going to draw a simple stroke. It's just going to draw a line. You can't use any special brushes with it. You can set it to have a special brush and it'll just ignore it and draw as it normally would. The other thing that you can do that you can't do with the brush tool is you can hover over the endpoint of a path, of an open path, and much like the pen tool, you get that slash mark that says you can continue drawing from that point. So what we're going to use the pencil tool for is to draw the arms and the legs. And because this is a tutorial and we want this to progress quickly, we're not going to be drawing hands, right? The monkey's arms are actually going to be tucked behind his back, so we don't have to see his hands, we don't have to draw his hands. And the same with the feet / legs. They're going to be incredibly simple, and they will have absolutely no toes. This is going to be super simple to show you the tools and make this go quickly. So let's start drawing one of the arms. So I'd like you to start drawing just on the inside of where the torso is. And we're going to draw, like a shoulder lump and then come down, and we'll draw a little elbow bump and then come over here and just let it go at that point, right? So here we go. And I'm doing this with a mouse, so it's highly entertaining, right? But I'm doing this with a mouse for a reason. Okay. So that arm is looking a little rough, right? It's a little bit, the shoulder's too far out, the elbow, everything's a little bit too far out. So one of the things that you can do with the pencil tool that's really awesome is edit your stroke. And so if you'll notice right now I've got the asterisk, that means it's going to draw a new stroke if I draw over here. But if I hover close to the line, that asterisk goes away, and I can just click and drag and reshape the arm, right? And this actually probably needs a really dramatic reshaping. I'm going to go ahead and just redraw this whole thing. I'm going to get rid of the elbow for the time being. Right? And that's starting to look a little better, but I could really just almost totally redraw this guy. Oh, let's undo that. And let's see if I can get that a little bit smoother. I could tuck this whole thing in, but I'm just going to keep going until I'm happy with where this goes. Now, if I want to get this end lower, like maybe I want a little bit more definition for his shoulder here, right? I could pull it down like that. Now, I want to get this elbow lump back in there. I just didn't need it to be quite as big, right? So I'm just going to click and drag a little bit, draw a lump, and come back this way. Now, if I'm still unhappy with this, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. Now, if I'm still unhappy with this, I can say, oh, I want this to be a little bit softer, so I can just come into this detail and curve this here, and I can come into this detail, curve that there. It's a really great tool because even though it's sloppy to draw with a mouse, or sometimes sloppy to draw even with a drawing tablet, you can go back in and fix your mistakes, right? These aren't set in stone. You don't have to go use the pen tool to go and like tweak each anchor point that you've drawn. The other nice thing about the pen tool is that if I hover over one of these open endpoints, I can just click and drag, and then when I get to this other point, you'll see that I get a circle. If I don't get the circle, that means that, and you see I drew a little blob there. I'm going to undo this and just redo it real quick. Right? If I don't get that circle, it's not going to complete the path. So you want to make sure that little circle shows up, and then you'll get a complete arm. All right, so I've got one arm. All right, so I've got this selected. I'm going to hit the letter V, And rather than draw another arm, I'm just going to take this arm, which looks ridiculous, and I probably need to reshape some more, but whatever, it's a demo. You guys hopefully will be drawing a better arm than I have. All right, so I'm going to take this arm and I'm going to reflect it and copy it, right? So I'm going to right click on it, go to transform, reflect, and if preview isn't checkmarked, go ahead and checkmark it, make sure this is in the right orientation, and then hit copy instead of OK. All right, so now I have two of these arms. I can drag this, oops, I can select the arm. Remember, when you only have the path set, right? There we go, there's an arm. And I'm actually gonna just, instead of adjusting this, I'm gonna pull this guy down and in, right? So a little bit more of his arm is gonna be under there. And I might actually go so far as to nudge this a bit as well, just to get it up so it looks somewhat similar to that other side. Okay, so we've got these creepy little arm things going on our monkey that will look better once the fill's in there. So now let's go ahead and draw our feet. And we're actually just going to draw 1 foot, and we're not going to reflect it yet because there's another operation we need to do to it, but we're going to do the operation first on the belly, and we're going to do some tests as well before we do that. So let's go ahead and use the pencil tool to draw our foot really quick. And again, I'm just going to start up here. I'm going to make sure that this overlaps plenty. I'm going to make him have, maybe he has really big feet. Oh, that's terrible. Right? The nice thing about this is I can also just delete. There we go, that's probably better. Right, and maybe he has a little kneecap going on here too. All right. And again, the other thing is, even if I deselect this path, right, and say, oh, what did I do there? Is that even connected? Let's zoom in. Look, it looks like I didn't actually close the path, did I? So I'm going to use the pencil tool. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to click here. I'm going to drag and stop here. Okay, so I can re-edit this with the pencil tool, but first, sometimes it's easier to subtract a point with the pen tool. So you see I have this overlap here. I'm just going to hit minus, delete this one path with the pen tool. Oh, and by the way, the quick key for the pen tool is N. And then I'm just going to draw here and connect there, so it's closed, right? And it doesn't even have to be a path that I've drawn with the pencil tool. Any path that's been drawn, whether it's a circle, rectangle, whatever, can be edited with the pencil tool. Okay, so I've got my leg. It looks pretty terrible. I could probably make some adjustments on that, but I'm not going to. So now we need to use what's called the ShapeBuilder tool. The ShapeBuilder tool works like the Pathfinder tool. Okay, I'm going to have to stop this. It's always a good idea to zoom in after you draw a shape to make sure that you did, in fact, connect the two endpoints. If I zoom in here, you're going to notice that I did not connect the two endpoints. And so what I'm going to need to do, the fastest way to solve this, right, I could move these points around or try and use the pencil tool to edit these points, but the fastest way is just to hit the minus key on the keyboard to get the anchor point subtraction tool and just delete one of these two anchors. Super fast. And then I can grab the pencil tool, and by the way, the quick key or the keyboard shortcut for the pencil tool is the letter N. And so now I can hover over this endpoint here, click drag, and connect it to that one. And I have finished what I needed to do. So now I've got this leg. Let's zoom out a little bit. I'm going to use the hand tool to recenter the artwork. Right? And this is starting to look like some terrible, hideous thing that was designed by the guys that do South Park. But before I do this leg, we're going to move on, and we're going to use a tool called the ShapeBuilder. And the ShapeBuilder allows us to quickly make complex shapes from two intersecting shapes. So I'm going to start by just drawing two overlapping ellipses. And again, the letter L is the quick key for the ellipse. So I'm just going to come up here and draw one, and then draw another one here. Right, so I've got my two overlapping tools, my two overlapping shapes. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the ShapeBuilder tool to essentially split this apart. And there's a couple different ways that the tool works. So first, let's use our selection tool, and let's color each of these a different color, just so we have some way of discerning what exactly is going on and what's filled in. Right? So magenta and cyan, so beautiful. Okay, so then in order for this tool to work, I need to select both pieces of artwork that I expect to be operating on. So I'm going to hold down Shift, and I've got these two circles here, or sorry, two ellipses. I'm going to come over here, and the ShapeBuilder tool is directly under the wrinkle tool. Shift M is the quick key, or the key combo to get that option set. All right, and so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the default settings. And you'll notice now that I have these two things selected, if I hover over this, it puts this gray grid on top of whatever part my mouse is over. And that's the piece that it's going to operate on. So in this case, this whole object is one thing, and this whole object is one thing. If I hit the plus, if I hover over this part and click on it, you'll see there's a little plus sign by that arrow. It's going to create a new piece. And so if I use my selection tool, when I start, all three of these things are going to be selected. So I can just click off into space, grab this part, or maybe I'll grab this part actually. I'm going to pull it down, and you'll see that now I have these three separate parts that have been made from that one part, or from those two pieces. So this is one way it works, right? Now notice that whatever was underneath this object is gone, right? It's actually severed this first ellipse at this line, turned it into this chunk, and then also extracted it from this piece. Now, if we use it in a different way, if I hit Command Z a few times until everything goes back together, and this is the point I was at, right? This stroke is missing, which means that the operation hasn't been done yet. So I'm going to go back to the ShapeBuilder. This time, let's say I want to have this piece and I want to have this piece, but I want this piece to remain full, and I don't really need this piece out here. If I hold down Option and click out here, I'm going to get rid of that piece. But when I do that, if I now use the selection tool and click on this object and pull this down, you'll see that I get both this little end cap here, and I also get the entirety of the shape of this thing. Now, if I was to subtract this, then I would get this shape overlapping this circle. But if I hold down Option and subtract this center part here, right, it basically takes away that piece where they intersect and leaves it open. So those are the ways that you can work with this. There's more advanced features as well, but for our purposes today, this is all we're going to need. So I'm going to select these parts, or they're actually already selected, so I'm just going to delete them. And then I'm going to use the ellipse tool again. I'm going to zoom out. Oops. And what I want to do is I want to make a bare, like, skin belly patch, right in here. And so I've got my ellipse tool selected. I'm going to hover right over the anchor point here. I'm going to hold down Option so I can pull out from the center, and then click and drag until I get, a belly patch that seems like it's going to be a good size. And I'm going to go with something like that. All right, so now I've got this shape, and I've got my other shape. So I need to select both of them. And then I'm going to grab my ShapeBuilder tool. And I'm going to hold down Option so I can subtract this part of the ellipse, because all I need is this part and that part. So click on that. And now I've got these two parts and they're overlapping, right? So if I was to rescale or change the shape of this back part, there wouldn't be any gaps that would form between these two shapes. And that just saves us some time, right? I can reshape these independently of one another, and I don't have to worry about them having little transparent holes that show up between them when I do that. Now we need to focus on the legs. And before we do that, I'm actually going to select this. Remember, I need to move to the selection tool. I don't want to click on the ShapeBuilder again. And then I just want to select this piece so that I can give it no fill, right? If you hadn't noticed, there are usually 3 shortcuts here. One of them is always no fill or no stroke. So I'm going to give that no fill so I can see what I'm doing under here. And so with this leg, what I want to do is I want to have like a zigzag, hair here. I want skin to be on his foot, but I want his hair to kind of end above his ankle a little bit. And so to do that, I'm going to use my pencil tool. And to start with, I'm just going to draw a little zigzag right here. All right, so I've drawn my zigzag. And now I'm going to use the feature that allows me to complete this shape to draw a big loop right around here. Okay, and this doesn't matter how big this is, because we're going to get rid of this with the ShapeBuilder tool. Right, so now I'm going to use the letter V. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to make sure I have the leg and this other part selected. Click on the ShapeBuilder. Hover over this part out here and hold down Option to subtract it. And now when I do that, I'm going to have a foot and a hairy leg. And these two pieces, right, are currently not connected. Right, so this is the whole leg that's covered in skin. And then this is the hairy part. Right? So what I need to do is I need to either hold down Shift and select both parts, which is easy enough to do. And I'm going to group these. And then what I want to do is I want to reflect them and copy them so that I have the other leg as well. Command or Control G will group this. And then if I right click on it, I can come down here to Transform, Reflect. And if you don't have preview turned on, you can turn it on and then go ahead and hit copy. And now we have 2 legs, and I can drag this leg over yonder, right? And maybe we need to move these legs closer together or further up, or maybe the shape needs to be adjusted some yet. But again, we're doing this quickly and I'm okay with it looking kind of like crap right now. If you were doing this on your own, I would expect you to actually take the time to go and shape these legs and make them look decent. Okay, so now I need to apply, much like I did on the face where I started with the skin tone here and then used the eyedropper to apply it to the other facial features, I'm going to do the exact same thing with the legs and arms and body. If I select one of the legs, it's going to select both objects in that leg. So if I just double click on it really quick and then click once more, I can select either the skin part or the hairy part. I'm going to select the skin part. I'm going to use my eyedropper tool and I'm going to grab the skin there. All right, so I've done that. So now I'm still in isolation mode on this leg. So I want to click on the leg. I want to hit the eyedropper. I want to click on his head. And then I want to use the selection tool to get out of that group by double clicking off in the gray background. Select this leg, double click, click once on the hairy part, hold down I, drop that in there, use the selection tool to select the foot part, use the letter I to grab skin tone from there, and then use the selection tool to double click an empty space and get out of isolation mode. Now I can select the belly patch and make that skin tone as well with the eyedropper. Now I can also select the body, and because the arms are not in groups, I can just hold down Shift and select all 3 of these, then use the eyedropper and make this the same. Now, obviously, we need to arrange these a little differently, right? He's got legs coming out of his belly, and he's got these creepy chicken arm things happening. And his mouth is covered up by his torso. So this is not how anything ever looks. So let's zoom out a little bit here. And let's use our layers panel. Right? And so here we are on layer 1. We have the head, right, as a group, and then we have all of these other body parts. So to start with, it looks like this is our torso. So maybe we want to write torso or body here. And maybe it would be faster if we actually grouped these arms as one object. So since they're both currently selected, I'm just going to hit Command or Control G and group them, and then just call them arms. And we might as well group these two legs together as well. So I'm going to select here. I'm going to hold down Shift and select here. I could also just use the selection tool in the window to select each one of those legs. Either way works, and I'm going to hit Command or Control G to group these, call them legs, and then I'm going to call this belly patch, which sounds creepy. Okay, so everything but the belly patch needs to be behind the torso, and the torso needs to be behind the head. So to start with, I'm going to pull the torso down. Oh, there's his chin. And if you use Command or Control and click in a list, you can select things that are not in line, right? So I can select just the arms and the legs without selecting the belly patch. Whereas if I was to select the legs, hold down Shift and go to the arms, then I'm going to be selecting the belly patch as well, right? So if I select the legs, hold down Command or Control, and then select the arms, now I've got those two things selected, and I can pull these down behind the torso, right? And so now this isn't perfect, but it's starting to get there, right? We could work on how the shading is going in through here. There's a lot of other details that could be added on. Those are things you guys can experiment with, right? I haven't drawn in, any sort of line or shadow or anything that indicates his very manly pectoral muscles. He could have a really great belly button in here as well. We could adjust the gradients both on the legs so that there's more shadow here, because the top of his thighs with a belly like that wouldn't be illuminated. So, we can make some adjustments here to make this a little bit better, but I'm going to stop the tutorial at this point because it's long enough already. And we've really gone over all the skills you need to do everything else.